Right, what is going on? Kevin Yates here, and I'm back with another live video today. And again, coming from not so sunny Lathrop, California. Man, I don't know what's up with this weather. It is, it's pretty brutal though. I am a summer guy all the way. So, you know, when this weather is like gloomy out and rain's coming and all this crap, like that's just not my thing. It's so not my thing. I want beach, I want warm weather, like I feel different. My energy levels pick up. I love that stuff. Anyway, so today I'm going to be sharing, really going to be sharing like three kind of steps to keep procrastination from basically taking over your life. So if you, find that you are constantly like sabotaging yourself, not even always sabotaging, but it's like you have goals, you have dreams, you have ambitions. You know, you want to start working out, you want to lose weight, or you want to change careers. Maybe you want to start a business, or you're just like looking for a new job or better pay or whatever it is. And you've got these things, but then you never do them, right? Or you start and you stop, and you're always kind of starting and stopping, or you keep thinking about all the things you want to do, and then you keep telling yourself that, you know what, someday I'll do that. Either when, I'm not so busy, or, life settles down, or, when everything just kind of times out right? The right time, or, we're always kind of telling ourselves, and my wife and I used to do this all the time. We used to talk about all these goals that we had, all the dreams that we had. We'd be sitting like out, if you could see behind me in the backyard. And so we've got, like this nice backyard and, table set up out there. And we would just go out there and, have a drink at night and be like talking about, all the things that we want to do. And the problem was that, that's all we were doing was talking about it and not like doing anything about it. Or, like I would start a million different things and then I would stop. And, I never really knew why, like what was going on. Why did I keep procrastinating? And, what could I do about it? So I'm going to get into that. I'm going to take you back, though, to kind of, preface this whole thing a little bit and to kind of tie it in a bit. So I'm going to take you back 17 years ago, right? So 17 years ago, it's year 2000. I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine here. So 2000, my wife and I get married. And for our honeymoon, we wanted to go to Disneyland, because this was like a place that, we hadn't been there since we were kids. And, we wanted to go, so we decided to go there for our honeymoon. So we go, and this is, again, year 2000, right? And so, we had a great time over there, loved it. And we kind of talked about like, we're going to do this again next year. On our honeymoon next year, we want to come back, or on our anniversary. We want to come back here, right? Happiest place on earth. And so, what happened was like the next year, we never got back there, right? Year after that, never got back there. And, it was this repeated cycle of kind of talking about like, this is a place we want to go. This is what we were going to do. And we couldn't get back there. Now, here was the problem. Little did we know at the time in 2000, that was the last time we were going to be at the happiest place on earth for a decade, right? 10 years this went on. And so the problem was that we had like a lot of financial like issues going on. I mean, we were like so deep in debt at the time. At one time I was working 3 jobs, and just to make our bills and all this stuff. And it was like this constant cycle where, we were just always in the red, and this was back in the time where and it's not that long ago, but I make it sound like it's forever. But, when you can write a check, you could go to the store and you could write a check and they actually wouldn't cash it for like 3 to 5 days sometimes. So, I mean, that's where we were. It was like, we were like, by the time we got paid, we were already in the red. Paycheck would come, boom, we're already like in the negative. And, it was like writing a check out. I remember like writing those checks out at times, trying to figure out like how many days was it till I get paid. And okay, so if I'm going to get paid like in 2 days, I could write this check. It won't be cashed for 3 or 4 days. It was like that. It was brutal. So basically, we go through this thing, and every time like we thought about going to Disneyland, that was the overwhelming thought, right? Was, oh my God, it's like the flight cost this much. Then there's the hotel, and then we've got food, we've got transportation, and then the park admission's like $100 a person as it is. And we would get like this overwhelming feeling of we can't afford it. There's no way we can do this. And that's kind of where it went. And it was year after year after year. And remember now, I told you in 2000, we were set to do this again in 2001, but this carried on for 10 freaking years of never going back there because in our minds it was, we can't afford it, or how are we going to come up, with the money just for this, or, what's going to happen? Oh my God, we have all these bills that we've got to pay. We got too many things that we got to do. Everything's so busy. Maybe, we can't even get the time off. And that's kind of the thing. Now, this may not be your story, obviously, but if you can relate a little bit to, the feelings that you tend to get every time you think about that goal that you want to achieve, what's that one thing that you want to do, and you kind of, every time you think about it, you don't do anything. You keep putting it off. And, it could be that feeling of overwhelm. It could be that feeling of like where this all comes from, right? Fear, right? The doubt, all of that stuff that happens, right? These are what we call procrastination, right? But procrastination is kind of a general term too, right? So what we got to do is kind of have a better understanding of it. If we want to overcome it and stop it from running every aspect of our life and keeping us from achieving the, ambitions and goals and dreams that we have, we've got to understand a little bit more about how procrastination really works, because it's really an internal process that goes on, and it's unique to each person, meaning that there's no like one size fits all recipe that applies to everybody who procrastinates. There's different reasons why it happens. There's a different internal process that goes on. But by understanding our own internal process, we can get a better idea of really what's causing it, what's behind it, and then we can take steps to basically to keep it from rearing its ugly head and keeping us from the things that we want to do, right? So there's 3 things that I'm going to cover. So basically it's like 3 steps. So we're going to talk about one, removing the threat. We're going to talk about number 2, which is to, where's my notes here? Because I tend to like ramble on and I forget where the hell I am. So I keep my notes with me so I don't forget things. Find the recipe. We're going to find the recipe, and I'm going to talk about what this means. And 3, then we are going to choose the option, or we can call it seek the solution, right? So 3 steps to help keep procrastination from taking control of your life and running your life. So let's talk about the first one, removing the threat. Okay, so this goes back to like the big goal. So in our case, when we were talking about like going back to Disneyland and not being able to afford it, we were in all this debt and all this crap was going on. And so all these years later, we got 10 years later, 2010, we're sitting there in the year 2010, and finally, like, things were looking up a little bit financially, right? We were in a much better place than we were, those years before. And we still kind of had the overwhelming thought, right? But here's what happened. We started to kind of, look at everything. So basically, when I'm talking about the threat, it's the feelings that you get, right? The emotions that you experience when you think about your goal, right? We talk about like oh, I'm stressed out, or we use like these vague terms. I'm stressed out. I'm pissed off, or whatever. And instead of that, like, it's really looking at when we uncover what the threat is. When I talk about a threat, it's not an actual like physical threat to your life, but it's those negative emotional states or those feelings that we get when we think about the goal. So for us, thinking about, oh my God, how are we going to come up with the money to take this trip? That was like the big threat. And really what it boiled down to was like when we thought about that, the feelings that went on were worry, it was doubt, it was fear to some extent, believe it or not, like having like this fear attached to like not having enough money, and even if we tried to do it, what if we blew our money on that and then we couldn't pay our bills, and kind of what ifing yourself to death, right? Worrying about things in the future created a lot of anxiety, right? So these are the things that are behind, and it could be different for you too, right? It might not be exactly, you know, what I'm saying, but if you can relate to that, you know, maybe this kind of gives you a little bit of insight into your own experiences, the emotions that you experience around the thing that you want to do that you keep putting off, or the things, right? So when we look at that now, here's how it works. Like I said, it's not like, this isn't a physical threat that, you know, like for us, if we didn't go to Disneyland, we weren't going to die, you know, we weren't going to, like, you know, get chased down by a lion and get ravaged to death or some, you know, crap like that. But here's the thing, like how the internal process that I talk about, it comes down to really like what our brains perceive as a threat. And it's very different, because even though we know things aren't like a physical threat to us, it's a threat at some level. It's like a subconscious thing. It threatens some aspect of our lives in a way. And our brain is always, it's wired, it's hardwired to seek out, basically to seek out danger, because our brain wants to make sure that we are safe at all times. So it's always like scanning through our senses, the environment, looking for danger, looking for threat. So what happens is that when we come across like negative type of emotions and feelings, you know, when we get anxious about things, we experience anxiety. When we have fear, when we have doubt, you know, we're obsessively worried about things like that. That is basically it's a message that our brain is getting, and it's sending that message to us like, uh-oh, there's danger here. There's a threat here that needs to be removed. This is the feeling that's going on. So we have to kind of get behind that and understand really what procrastination looks like. What is the underlying kind of feeling here? What is the threat? So, you know, is it a feeling of, you know, fear? Is it some kind of, you know, worry? Like if you go after a goal, a lot of times, like, you know, you might be worried about being judged by other people. You might be wondering, like, you know, if I do this thing, or, you know, sometimes people worry about that shit when, like, you know, they want more money or something. Oh, God, if I had money like that, what would everybody else think of me? Would that alienate me from my family? How am I going to be judged? What are other people going to say? You know, am I going to be criticized? Things like that come up, and it's very powerful. Those are very powerful feelings that can lie behind the whole procrastination. So it's kind of like looking at what's feeding the monster, right? Procrastination is the monster. What's feeding it? What's fueling it? What is it? Is it worry? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it, you know, what is it? So once you identify that, then it's like, if you've heard that phrase, it's like real popular motivational kind of circles, but how does it go? Like, face your fear and the fear disappears. Something like that, right? Real popular, like, motivational quote. And, you know, it might sound kind of airy-fairy, you know, bullshit, you know, face the fear kind of crap. But if we really look at it, like, it makes a lot of sense, because, you know, when you're facing that fear that's triggering the whole procrastination, really, it's not like you're looking it square in the eyes and then it loses its power and all that kind of shit. But really what it comes down to is like when you face it, it's really that you are aware of it. You understand what it is. And that's kind of where like the face the fear comes from, right? It's not looking it, you know, in the eye, but it kind of is like you're becoming aware of what it is. You're identifying exactly what that is. It's like, oh, you know, like every time like I want to put this goal off, it's because I'm scared to death of what people are going to think about me. So I'm really deep down, I'm afraid, or, you know, I'm worried what's going to happen if. Sometimes we just like forecast so far down the road of worry of what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh my God, I need to do this, and then I'm going to need to do that. And we get so many steps down the road when we don't even know if that's going to happen. And we create like this worst case scenario, like outcome, and that whole thing, and it's so like crazy how it happens, but we do it, whether we realize it, and sometimes we don't realize it. So we're so many steps down the road of something that hasn't even happened yet, and that can cause procrastination. So it's really identifying that threat. Once you've got that, it's like looking the fear in the eyes. When you do that, you know what it is, and then you can kind of know where it's coming from. And once you do that, then it's like that whole thing happens where the fear loses its power. Face the fear and the fear disappears. Well, it really lessens in intensity, because the thing that we feel, it's like this big boogeyman, right? Our fears. Oh my God, like the monster in the closet when you're a kid. Don't open the fucking closet. But when you open it up, it's like nothing's there, right? And a lot of times the worst case scenario that we're imagining all the time never even happens. Almost always it goes like this. It never even happens. So that's kind of the big thing, that when we can identify, the fear here, and or the threat that's going on, that's triggering the whole procrastination, we can get a better understanding what it is, where it comes from. Then we're in a position to deal with it more effectively. It doesn't seem like such a big deal, and it loses its emotional grip on us, if that makes sense. All right. So if you can relate to that, let me know. If you have any questions or comments, type them below. If you feel that somebody would benefit from this, what I'm talking about, if you know somebody who's stuck in procrastination, this could be you, this could be someone this could be like clients that you have, that it happens. Share this with them. Hit the share button on it and let them know that, hey, here's something that I think can help you out, all right? So that is the first thing, remove the threat. Now, let's get into the second step here, where we talk about finding the recipe. So, once we've got the threat identified and all that stuff, now we kind of know what we're playing with, all right? So now we take it a little bit deeper into finding the recipe. Now, when I say the recipe, you can kind of I'll describe it in a way like baking a cake, okay? So when you bake a cake, you've got all the ingredients that you need. So you need a little of this, you need a little of that. And not only do you need the right ingredients, but most importantly is you need to know the sequence to put them in. Because if you don't put them in the right order, you don't mix them right or whatever, then the cake tastes like shit, doesn't come out right? You get the wrong outcome is what I'm trying to say. So this is the same way. Now, when we look at procrastination, we want to look at what the recipe looks like. So for an example, I recently was going through, I had all these nutrition struggles. I was struggling so damn bad with my diet. It was freaking ridiculous. I was eating so much shit every day, and I couldn't control the cravings I had. And I knew there was something beyond just needing to eat better. I could beat it in my head all I want. Kev, you need to eat better. Kev, you need to stop eating shit. Kev, stop stuffing your face. I knew that, but it wasn't changing the fact that I wasn't doing it. So, really what was going on was there was this recipe, and it had nothing to do with nutrition for me. It really had to do with anxiety. And when I was going into what I'm learning is state anxiety, where there were times when I would go into this state where I would feel all this anxiety, and so the anxiety had this whole chain reaction effect of that would affect what I ate. So my whole nutrition then got thrown way the hell off because of it. And so when I traced back the whole recipe, I was able to pinpoint it to where what I thought was okay, it's this nutrition issue that's being affected by I need a different behavior strategy or a different plan. But really when I traced it back, I was going, okay, what I found was that I was placing a lot of pressure on myself. I had this whole idea that I needed, I suffered really bad, and I still do, from perfectionism. I'm a recovering perfectionist. What that means for me is I have all these different roles. So when I was training clients, I was seeing myself as having to be this perfect role model of health and fitness. I had to look a certain way. I had to, eat a certain way. I had to train a certain amount of times a week. If I didn't do that, then I felt like I was falling short of this model that I created for myself, and that would create a whole shitload of pressure I put on myself, and the negative feelings, which drove my anxiety through the roof, which affected my mood, it affected my sleep, it affected my energy, and all of that went into affecting my nutrition. So it was this big thing, but that was my quote-unquote recipe. So I had to know, basically, when I was baking an anxiety cake, right? And it's the same thing when you look at the thing that you want to achieve, and when you keep putting it off, it's looking at the whole recipe. How does it, what does that recipe look like? Again, imagine you're baking the cake. What are the ingredients that go into that recipe, and what's the sequence that happens? Where does it start? So let's look at three things. Let's look at first the trigger. Okay, when we're looking at the recipe, the trigger. That is like the match that ignites the flame. It's the thing that starts puts the whole process in motion of procrastination. Okay, so what is the trigger for you? Where does it start from? And again, when you look at like the fear or the fear, the threat that I talked about, a lot of times it's right there. But identifying, getting very, very clear on what the trigger is that sets it all off. And then looking at, it's kind of like telling a story, right? We start at the beginning, the intro of the story, that's the trigger. Then the middle of the story, we look at the event, right? And that's like when you're going into it, procrastination, what's happening, right? I mean, it's beyond, I'm just procrastinating, or I just don't want to do anything. Okay, well, great. But what's really happening? Like every time I think of starting that business that I want, well, then I start thinking of all the things I've got to do. Then I have to like find a location, or I have to come up with a plan, or do I need to get a loan, or, all these different things that come up. And then I get scared, or then I worry because I got to come up with maybe like money to put down on this place, or I'm worried about how that's going to happen, or I worry about what if I do it and it fails. On and on it goes, right? But, kind of look at the event. What are all these things that are happening? What are you experiencing as you're going into the procrastination? When you can start detailing the recipe, I'm telling you, it gives you a tremendous amount of power. And that power will, as I'll talk about in a little bit, it'll create choice and options for you, okay? And then the third, where am I at? Lost my place. The effect. So we look at the effect, right? And so if we look at the story, we got the beginning, which is the trigger. We got the middle, which is the event. And then the end, we've got the effect, right? So what is the outcome of it? When you trigger the procrastination, then you're in the middle of the whole thing that's happening, and you're noticing what's going on in you, what you're feeling, what you're doing, how you're behaving, you're acting, right? All those things. And then at the end, what is the outcome of it all, right? When you procrastinate, like what are you really not doing? What is the end result, right? It's beyond, well, I just don't do it, right? What's the end result of it? If you don't do it, what happens? Okay, how do you feel about yourself? What's going on then? A lot of times, like there's a guilt trip. I've gone through that, and I go through it at times now, where I will just guilt the shit out of myself, call myself lazy, and you should have done this, and then you fucked up this, and I mean, it's crazy stuff, right? But that's kind of the trick my mind plays on me. So that's what you go through: the trigger, the event, and then the effect, right? And that's all like goes into creating the recipe. All right. So we've gone through two of the steps here. I want to welcome you guys who are tuned in right now. And again, if any of this resonates with you, if there's any insights that you gained, do me a favor, like this, share this, comment below. Let me know what you're getting from this. If you don't agree with something, put it down there as well. You don't have to agree with everything I say. This is only me just kind of sharing my own knowledge and experience in a way that hopefully can help people out. So, but I don't claim to know it all, and I'm certainly no psychologist here. This is just going from the years of experience that I've had and dealing with a lot of clients over 16 years who have gone through these types of issues, and helping them through that, as well as myself dealing with all this crap that I went through as well. All right, so do me a favor, give me a share if you like this. If you're getting something from it, share it with somebody somebody you feel that could benefit from this information. So let's go to number 3. So now, when we've got these 2 steps in place, right, we don't want to jump to the 3rd step, because this is what happens a lot of times is we're seeking a solution. So we're stuck over here in procrastination, but we want to jump over here to seek a solution, or to know, like, what are the options that can fix this, right? Get rid of this whole thing. Get me to stop doing what I'm doing. But we're missing the other 2 steps a lot of times. If we miss the first step, where we don't identify and remove the threat, it's not going to happen, right? Getting rid of it isn't going to happen, because again, our brains are hardwired to seek safety first. Without safety, our brains could give a shit less about like seeking goals and getting rid of procrastination type stuff and all of that. It's safety first. If there's any threat that our minds or our brains perceive is there, then that's where our focus goes, and we're basically not able to effectively deal with this over here. The solutions do not come. You know, we're not focused on solutions. We're focused on get rid of the damn threat, right? Get rid of the fear. Get rid of the worry. We don't want to feel that stuff. And what happens is a lot of times we don't even go through that first step, because when we feel fear, when we're filled with doubt, when we are filled with like worry and anxiety and depression and things like that, we are also hardwired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And so what we will do is we will tend to either deny what we're experiencing because it's too damn painful, we don't want to face it, so we deny it, or we try to repress it, right? Get that shit away from me. I'm going to act like you're not here. I'm going to push you down. You know what? I'm going to go out and drink that bottle of wine, and that way I can numb myself and I don't have to feel you. I'm going to go and eat eat a big dessert or have that chocolate or whatever I'm craving because I want to feel good. I don't want to deal with you, right? Suppression type things. There's a lot of other ways people suppress. And then there's also the hell was the other one? Deny, suppress, and ignore, basically, right? Just kind of, you try to ignore what you're feeling or what you're experiencing, and, maybe if I ignore it enough, it'll go away. But here's the problem. The more we deny, the more we suppress, and the more we ignore, the more we get the same feelings coming back. They grow stronger, right? And it's that whole kind of, I can't remember how the saying goes, but basically that, the things that we try to repress become stronger within us. And they really do. It's like that shit is in there doing push-ups and doing squats, and it's building itself stronger, because when you don't listen to the signal, your brain's basically giving you the signal saying, look, this is something that I'm experiencing. I'm feeling a threat here. This is the experience of it, and I need you to deal with it so that I can be safe. And that way I know you're safe. And when we don't deal with it, then the brain's basically saying, oh, okay, well, guess what? You're not listening, so I'm going to make it a little bit louder, and I'm going to make this a little bit noisier, and I'm going to make this a little bit stronger to get your attention, right? And so the longer it goes, then we start doing some crazy-ass shit, self-sabotaging and very dysfunctional behaviors the longer that it goes. And that's just our brain's way of trying to communicate that we really need to listen and do something, okay? So anyway, we have to have those first two things in place. We got to remove the threat, and then we have to identify the recipe in order to get to where we can be in a place where we can really focus on a solution. We could seek the solution now, or another way we can call it is to choose the option, okay? So when we're looking at that, basically there's kind of a balance that we want to look at. Now, procrastination a lot of times is the result of us feeling overwhelmed. Why do we feel overwhelmed? Well, we can have too much information coming at us all at once. My wife does this constantly. When we go out to, there's a place over in Santa Cruz. When we go out there, it's called Marianne's Ice Cream. If you've never been out to Santa Cruz and have Marianne's Ice Cream, oh my God, you're missing out. But this place has like a whole shit ton of flavors all over the wall. So many flavors to choose from. And it never fails. We get in there, and my wife's looking at that wall with all the flavors over there, and like it takes her forever. She's like, she doesn't know what to pick. And it's because she gets overwhelmed. There's like too much information coming at her all at once, and it overwhelms her. And, if you've ever experienced this yourself, like remember the saying paralysis by analysis, right? We have too much coming in, and we can't effectively like process it all at once. We get overwhelmed, and when we feel overwhelmed, we do nothing, right? So it creates that whole fight, flight, or freeze type of reaction where we're either going to try to run away, right? We avoid doing anything, and this is procrastination, right? We avoid doing what we need to do. We kind of avoid it and run away from it. Say, I'll do it later, right? That's fine, I'll do that later. Or we do nothing. We're so overwhelmed, it's like you get paralyzed. You do nothing. Oh, okay, that sounds great. I'll think about that, right? So anyway, so that's where we get. So we don't want to have too many options where we're trying to fix a million different things at once, because it leads to overwhelm. When we get overwhelmed, we do nothing. And then we're back in threat. That's a form of what the brain will feel is a threat. The other thing is, on the flip side, if we have too few options, then what happens is we start to feel restricted, right? It's like, oh man, if this option, if there's only one option that I've got and that really doesn't feel good to me, or I don't like it, it's kind of like, anybody like goes on a diet or starts a workout program or something, and at first they're like gung-ho about it. Oh, I want to lose weight, or I want to get fit, or whatever they want to do. And they start it and they're all gung-ho about it, and then, within a few weeks or a month or two later, like they're falling back into old habits, they're slipping off, and and all that. And we try and motivate them and pump them up and all that. But the real problem is that they're not enjoying what they have to do, right? They get pissed off because of the diet; it's too restrictive. They are feeling like this is something that they kind of have to get themselves to do. And so when they're in that place, right, we tend to feel like we don't have many options, like, oh my God, this is what I have to do and I don't want to do it. So that's kind of a thing. We want to have enough kind of options here that we could pick something that works for us, okay? Because if you don't like what you do, you're not going to stick with it anyway. And, then that goes into the whole kind of threat response anyway, and I won't get into all that because it's all sciencey crap that, just gets too damn technical and whatever, puts you to sleep. So we need to have a balance in there, right? We want to have like enough options that are not too many to where we get overwhelmed, but not too few that we feel restricted, okay? So then, what we look at really is just kind of picking what I call the three easy, or the easy three. And it's basically picking three options, three solutions that will work for you. Now, given everything that you found out, you've identified what the threat was, you've identified your recipe. So based on that stuff, what are three options that will work for you? And you don't have to pick all three. The idea is to make them easy. And when I say easy, it's to a point where you don't feel stressed out or overwhelmed or like, oh shit, this is too much, I can't handle it type things. You want to pick these options where you feel like, that's actually like really doable for me. It's not going to interfere with my life. It's not going to make me uncomfortable. Yeah, I could do that. I know for me, like dealing with the whole nutrition thing, the simplest damn thing for me and it's really worked wonders ever since I did this. I had all these different options. So I knew, I had to like balance out my nervous system. I didn't have to, but I had options. I needed to hydrate better was another option, because when I'm dehydrated, I tend to get, interpret that as hunger and I overeat a lot. Another one was taking magnesium. Another one was getting an early breakfast in so I could, decrease like cortisol and decrease the whole sympathetic nervous system, and I don't feel so anxious and things like that. And I shit you not, taking the magnesium was the easiest thing for me to do, and boom, it worked like magic right from the beginning. And when it was easy for me to like implement that and make that a habit so that I could do it without thinking about it. And then from there, it was easy to add, another kind of option in there, right? So it was just kind of building onto that without it feeling like a struggle. So pick the easy three, right? The three easiest solutions, and you don't have to do all three of them. Just pick one or two, but start with one. And when you get that one, you make it a habit, you work on it, and if it's not for you, or you find that, this just isn't like the right thing, doesn't feel right, great, then you can stop that and try something else, right? But the whole thing is giving yourself enough options to where, you can do this, right? And that it doesn't feel like it's a big stress or strain in your life, all right? So, I am about out of breath. Hopefully, that helped you out. If it did, give me a like, give me a share. Again, if you know somebody who you feel that this could benefit, do me a favor and share this with them. Do that right now. And that's going to be it. So, like I said, procrastination, it tends to be like this big boogeyman we see a lot of times. But when we get down into, breaking it down into the 3 steps, it's a simple and effective way to keep procrastination from, taking control and running your life and keeping you from achieving the things that you most want to achieve, all right? So 3 steps again, just to recap. We've got to remove the threat. We've got to, find the recipe. And then we've got to seek the solution or choose an option. That is it. 3 simple steps to keep procrastination from taking over your life. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And it's Thursday now, so I'm thinking Tuesday, 10 a.m., I will be back with another episode. In the meantime, I want to thank you for tuning in, and I want to wish you a great weekend, an early weekend here, and I'll be talking at you real soon. Take care, you guys. See ya.